3 days ago, a 34-year-old man from Somalia landed at Miami International Airport. He was carrying a diplomatic passport. He had been selected by FIFA, the organization running this tournament, through 3 years of rigorous merit assessment. He had been named the best referee in Africa in 2025. He had officiated the CAF Champions League final just weeks earlier. He would have been the first Somali referee in World Cup history. He was questioned for 11 hours. Then he was put back on a plane. And today, just published, FIFA confirmed something that changes the story in a way nobody expected. They're going to pay him anyway. Omar Artan will receive his full tournament fee, every payment, every bonus, everything that the referees currently officiating matches at the 2026 World Cup are entitled to receive. Artan will get it, even though he never set foot on a World Cup pitch. BBC Sport confirmed it. Goal.com confirmed it. Yahoo Sports confirmed it. Sources told the BBC that FIFA has committed to paying his full salary, even though referees typically don't receive their fees until the tournament is over. Now, here's the question that FIFA's payment decision raises. If Artan deserved the fee, if he was good enough, professional enough, worthy enough to receive the full payment, why wasn't he good enough to be given a room in Toronto and bussed to his matches? Why wasn't he good enough for FIFA to formally protest the decision that barred him? Why did FIFA's response to a man they apparently valued enough to pay in full consist of 5 words? "We are not involved in this"? That contradiction between paying Artan and not fighting for Artan is the story underneath this story, and it opens into something much larger, because Artan is not alone, and the continent he represents is watching all of this happen and coming to a conclusion about what FIFA actually values when the words and the actions come into conflict. This is what Africa's rebellion against FIFA looks like, and today we're going to tell it all. If you're new here and you want honest football coverage that goes beyond the scoreline, subscribe right now, hit the bell. This channel covers what other channels don't, and right now this is the most important story in world football. Let's start with the numbers, because the scale of what's happened to African football fans at this tournament is the part that hasn't been told clearly enough. 10 African nations qualified for the 2026 World Cup. 10. It's the largest African contingent in tournament history thanks to the expanded 48-team format. Algeria, Cape Verde, Egypt, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Morocco, Senegal, South Africa, Tunisia, and DR Congo, the nation returning to a World Cup for the first time since 1974. 10 nations. 9 of them have fans whose ability to travel to the United States has been directly or severely impacted by travel restrictions and visa barriers to attend matches. Not all of them face the same level of restriction, but the scale of the affected African fan base is enormous. 2 African nations, Senegal and Ivory Coast, are on the December 2025 list of countries facing partial travel restrictions to the United States, meaning their nationals cannot obtain standard B1, B2 tourist visas to attend matches. DR Congo is on the full travel ban list from June 2025, and then an Ebola outbreak in their home country in May 2026 added a CDC travel restriction order on top of the existing ban, creating a double barrier for Congolese fans. And the wider picture for African nations not technically banned is only marginally better. Embassy backlogs in Accra, Lagos, Rabat, and Egypt have produced wait times stretching for months. Groups of Nigerian supporters, Ghanaian supporters, Moroccan supporters, and Egyptian supporters have been denied visas or had applications deferred even after buying tickets and making travel plans. A supporters leader from Ivory Coast told the Nigerian Sun newspaper this week that many applicants were still unsuccessful in obtaining entry permits despite complying with all required travel procedures. He urged authorities to reconsider the situation and allow genuine football fans to attend. Genuine football fans who bought tickets, who followed the procedure, who were denied anyway. Travel and Tour World published a comprehensive analysis yesterday that confirmed what individual stories have been indicating for months. World Cup 2026 visa denials and bureaucratic hurdles for fans seeking to enter the United States are reshaping the narrative around global sport and revealing deep travel barriers that threaten the inclusivity of the event. Not might threaten, are threatening in real time while the tournament is underway.
Here's where it gets interesting, and where Africa's rebellion takes on institutional form. Al Jazeera published a piece in May that said something about the Confederation of African Football that was striking in its directness. It described CAF's response to the visa crisis as shameful, not inadequate, not insufficient, shameful. The article named the specific moment that defines the contrast. In December, at the World Cup draw at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., FIFA President Gianni Infantino presented the host nation's leader with the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize from the stage of the ceremony. 3 days before that ceremony, that same leader had used the closing minutes of a White House cabinet meeting to call Somali people garbage and said their country stinks. 3 days after that statement, the FIFA Peace Prize ceremony, and CAF, the confederation representing the 54 member nations of African football, said nothing about the prize, about the statement, about the policy that would, in the months following, exclude the fans of African qualified nations from the tournament their teams earned the right to play in. Al Jazeera's conclusion was precise. The Confederation's silence on U.S. travel bans and visa restrictions for African fans is shameful. That word, shameful, applied to the institution whose entire purpose is to represent and protect African football. Applied by the world's most widely read media organizations, and it has not been disputed by CAF. Now let's make this human, because behind every statistic about visa denials and travel restrictions is a real person with a real story. Jibril Gueye is a Senegalese football fan. He was at the Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco in January when a reporter found him. He had a ticket to the World Cup. He had plans, and then the restrictions closed around him. I don't know why the American president would want teams from certain countries not to take part, he said. If that's the case, they shouldn't agree to host the World Cup. It's up to the United States to provide the conditions, the means, and the resources to allow the qualified countries so everyone can go and support their team. Fatou Diédhiou, president of a Senegalese women's supporters group, told Al Jazeera, "We really want to participate, but we don't know how. Now we just wait, because the World Cup isn't here yet. Maybe they'll change their minds. We don't know. We wait and see." They waited. The tournament started. Nothing changed. And right now, as Senegal's players prepare for their Group I matches against Iraq, France, and Norway, matches that could take them to the knockout stage for the first time since their extraordinary 1992 run to the quarterfinals, there are no Senegalese fans in the stands. The diaspora community already living in the United States is watching. Some of them are there. But the traveling support, the people who flew to Dakar from all over the world, who followed Mane and the squad to Qatar in 2022, who create the distinctive noise and color and belonging that defines what a World Cup atmosphere is, they're watching from screens. Sadio Mane, at 34, in what may be his final World Cup, is playing in front of stands that should be full of the people who love what he represents. They're not there. FIFA says they are not involved. CAF says nothing. Here is what makes Africa's rebellion significant beyond the emotional reality of individual fans. This is the first World Cup where 9 of 10 African qualifying nations have fans materially affected by visa barriers created by the host country. Not 1 or 2, 9 of 10. The largest African presence in tournament history. The expanded format that was sold to Africa as an opportunity, 9 automatic places, unprecedented representation, the continent's moment, has arrived at a tournament where the fans of those nations face barriers that no previous World Cup contingent from Africa has encountered on this scale. What makes it a rebellion is that it's now being said loudly by Jibril Gueye, by Fatou Deju, by Al Jazeera calling CAF's silence shameful, by Ruud Gullit calling for Infantino's resignation, by UEFA appointing Artan to the Super Cup in direct response to FIFA's inaction, by football fans across the continent watching their teams play in stadiums that should include them. It's a rebellion without picket lines or formal declarations. It's expressed in the gap between what was promised and what arrived, in the empty sections at Guadalajara that FIFA called 98% full, in the 3,000 unsold tickets for Iran's matches, the highest of any team in the competition, in the fact that FIFA had to announce it would pay Artan his full fee precisely because paying him is the minimum possible gesture toward a man they failed to fight for. The fee is real, and it matters to Artan personally. He shouldn't be financially penalized for a decision that wasn't his. But a fee is not an apology. A fee is not a protest. A fee is not what you say to an institution when you believe what was done to one of your selected officials was wrong. If FIFA believed it was wrong, they would have said so. They would have made a formal representation. They would have sought an alternative arrangement. Sources told ESPN it would have been impractical to base Artan in Canada or Mexico. UEFA found it practical to give him the Super Cup. FIFA found it impractical and wrote a check. And if you've been following this tournament from the beginning, if you've seen all the issues we've covered, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that subscribe button right now if you haven't already, because the second half of this tournament is where the real consequences of everything we've discussed start to arrive, and this channel will be here for every moment of it. Let's look at where this goes from here, because the rebellion has two possible trajectories. The first is the one football always hopes for. The matches become the story. Senegal beat France, Morocco advance past the group stage as they did in 2022 and further. Ghana make it to the knockout round. The football produces the moments that travel back to African cities and living rooms and street corners and become the memories that define the sport's meaning in the continent's most passionate football communities. The VAR controversy from Haiti, Scotland, and Qatar, Switzerland fades. The empty seats fill in the knockout rounds. The tournament finds its level. The second trajectory is harder. The empty sections persist through the group stage wherever African and Middle Eastern nations play without their traveling support. The cumulative visual evidence, match after match, makes the access question unavoidable in the mainstream commentary that FIFA has been hoping would focus on the football. The Attorney General investigation into ticketing produces findings that add legal weight to the institutional critiques already on record, and the post-tournament reckoning, the economic shortfall for host cities, the human rights emergency assessment, the CAF silence, the cost of Artan's fee becomes the story that defines how this edition is remembered. Neither of those outcomes is certain. Both are possible, and the tournament is still in its early days. What is certain is that Africa entered this World Cup with 10 qualified nations and unprecedented representation, and it entered without its fans. And the organization that runs football, FIFA, is paying a referee his full fee while describing itself as not involved in the decisions that kept him and thousands of others out of the tournament. That gap between the payment and the protest, between the fee and the fight, is where Africa's rebellion lives, quiet, documented, and growing with every match that passes without the fans who should be there. Here's what I want to ask you, not about the football, but about this. Do you think FIFA's decision to pay Artan his full fee is genuine acknowledgement of what went wrong, or does it feel more like a gesture designed to close a story FIFA wants closed? And what would you need to see from FIFA before you believed the organization was actually taking responsibility for what happened to African fans at this tournament?